Have you ever felt an unnamed dread lurking beneath the surface of your everyday life? A subtle, persistent anxiety that whispers of your smallness, your fragility, in the face of an overwhelming universe. You push it down, you distract yourself, you build your routines, your ambitions. But it's always there, isn't it? What if this wasn't just your private struggle, but the fundamental unspoken terror that secretly drives all human endeavor? What if the greatest lie we tell ourselves is the one that allows us to simply get out of bed each morning? This profound and often terrifying question lies at the heart of Ernest Becker's Pulitzer Prize-winning masterpiece, The Denial of Death. It's a work that doesn't offer easy answers, but instead provides a stark, unflinching look into the core of the human condition. Becker argues that our deepest, most repressed fear, the terror of our own mortality, is not a peripheral concern, but the central engine shaping our personalities, our cultures, our ambitions, and even our most intimate relationships. In this exploration, we will delve into Becker's radical insights, uncovering how this denial of death operates within you, how it constructs your reality, and most importantly, what happens when we dare to confront it. This isn't just philosophy. It's a mirror to your deepest self. If you are ready to navigate these challenging but ultimately liberating truths, to understand the forces that truly shape your existence, then join us on MindMirror. Subscribe now and embark on this journey of profound self-discovery. We all carry within us a fundamental contradiction, a paradox that defines our very being. On one hand, we are creatures of boundless imagination, capable of soaring to incredible heights of thought, creativity, and symbolic meaning. We name the stars, we dream of eternity, we build civilizations that aspire to permanence. Yet, on the other hand, we are, as Becker so starkly puts it, gods with anuses. We are animals, bound to a physical body that is destined for decay and dissolution. We hunger, we excrete, we sicken, and ultimately, we die. This is the horrifying truth of our creatureliness, a truth that stands in stark contrast to our symbolic aspirations for transcendence. How do you reconcile this? How do you live with the knowledge that your grandest dreams are housed in a temporary, fragile vessel? This isn't a mere philosophical puzzle. It's the source of our deepest existential anxiety, the awareness of our own impending death. Our ultimate insignificance in the grand cosmic scheme is a terror so profound that, according to Becker, it becomes the primary, often unconscious motivator of human behavior. We are, in essence, creatures uniquely burdened with the knowledge of our own doom. Ernest Becker's central thesis, the thinking tool he offers us, is precisely this. The terror of death is not a secondary fear, but the fundamental fear, the repressed engine behind much of what we call normal human life. He doesn't mean a simple fear of pain or the unknown, but the raw, existential dread of ceasing to be, of annihilation, of utter meaninglessness. The idea of death, the fear of it, haunts the human animal like nothing else. Becker writes, "It is a mainspring of human activity designed largely to avoid the fatality of death, to overcome it by denying, in some way, that it is the final destiny for man." This denial isn't a simple act of looking away. It's an intricate, lifelong project. Think about it. Why do we strive so hard, build so much, cling so fiercely to our beliefs and identities? Becker argues that at the root of it all is this primal need to manage the overwhelming terror of our finitude, Our entire psychological and cultural apparatus is, in a sense, a sophisticated defense mechanism against this one unbearable truth. This isn't a new problem. Becker draws heavily on thinkers like Otto Rank and Søren Kierkegaard, who understood that the human condition is inherently one of anxiety. The fall from grace, whether you take it literally or metaphorically, represents this awakening to our own vulnerability and mortality. We are no longer in blissful ignorance, embedded in nature. We are conscious of ourselves as separate, and therefore as perishable. This self-consciousness, this ability to reflect on our own existence, is both our greatest gift and our most profound curse. It allows us to create meaning, to love, to build, but it also forces us to confront the abyss of our own non-existence. As Kierkegaard pointed out, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, the realization of our terrifying capacity to choose, and the ultimate choice always looms: how to live in the face of death. So, the human animal, uniquely aware of its impending demise, is faced with an intolerable psychic burden. How does it cope? This is where Becker's analysis becomes truly illuminating and, for many, deeply unsettling. He argues that we engage in a massive, collective, and largely unconscious project of denial. What does this mean for you? It means that many of your deepest anxieties, your most persistent insecurities, your inexplicable compulsions, or even your most cherished ambitions, might be rooted in this fundamental repressed terror of death, that nagging feeling that you're not doing enough, not being enough, not leaving a significant enough mark on the world, that could be the echo of this primal fear. Understanding this doesn't mean surrendering to despair. On the contrary, Becker believed that only by acknowledging this core motivation can we begin to understand ourselves authentically. It's about recognizing the game we are all playing, the intricate ways we try to build a sense of safety and meaning in a universe that offers neither. This awareness is the first step towards a more conscious, and perhaps even a more courageous, way of living. Consider the person obsessed with control, a common manifestation of anxiety. Could this be an attempt to control the ultimate uncontrollable, death itself, or the relentless pursuit of fame and recognition? Is it not, at its heart, a desire to be remembered, to achieve a form of symbolic immortality that outlasts the physical body? Even our everyday anxieties, the fear of public speaking, the dread of failure, the discomfort with solitude, can be seen through Becker's lens as micro-manifestations of this larger existential terror. The vital lie that Becker speaks of isn't a conscious deception, but the very fabric of our character, woven to protect us. If the terror of death is so fundamental, how do we manage to function at all? How do we build lives, form relationships, pursue goals? With this abyss constantly beneath our feet, you might feel you've largely conquered your fears, that you are a rational, composed individual. But what if that very composure, that character you present to the world, is itself the most sophisticated defense mechanism? Becker argues that what we call character, our personality, our habits, our beliefs, our very sense of self, is, in large part, a vital lie. It's a carefully constructed fiction, a shield we build from childhood onwards to protect ourselves from the overwhelming anxiety of our creatureliness and the knowledge of our death. It's vital because without it, we would be paralyzed by terror, but it's a lie because it denies the full, often unbearable truth of our condition. This character armor, as psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich termed it, and as Becker adapts the concept, is formed through a process of repression. We repress the full awareness of our mortality, the raw fear of annihilation. We learn to narrow our consciousness, to focus on manageable, culturally sanctioned goals and meanings, to adopt the roles and values that our society offers as normal and good. Culture, in Becker's view, is a symbolic action system, a structure of statuses and roles, customs and rules for behavior, designed to serve as a vehicle for earthly heroism. It provides us with ready-made scripts for how to live, how to find meaning, and crucially, how to feel a sense of significance that transcends our individual perishable lives. This process begins in childhood. The child, confronted with its own helplessness and dependence, and dimly sensing the terrors of the world, learns to identify with the power of its parents, to internalize their values, to seek their approval. This is the beginning of the construction of the vital lie. The belief that if one is good, if one plays by the rules, one will be safe, protected, and perhaps even, in some symbolic way, immortal. The early psychoanalysts, particularly Otto Rank, whom Becker revered, understood this dynamic profoundly. The child's world is one of overwhelming power figures. To survive, the child learns to transfer its own anxieties and its need for power onto these figures. They become the guarantors of safety, the arbiters of meaning. This transference, Becker argues, is not just a feature of childhood or therapy, but a fundamental human mechanism. As adults, we continue this process, transferring our need for ultimate meaning and security onto various cultural immortality ideologies, our careers, our nations, our romantic partners, our children, our religions, our artistic creations. These become the arenas where we play out our heroism, where we strive to create something of lasting value, something that will deny the ultimate victory of death. The vital lie of character, therefore, is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the human animal's incredible creativity and resilience. It's an attempt to fashion a manageable reality out of an unmanageable one. It allows us to act, to love, to strive, even in the face of what Becker calls the worm at the core, the gnawing awareness of our finitude. But, and this is crucial, it comes at a cost. For you, this means that the person you believe yourself to be, your strengths, your weaknesses, your beliefs, your very identity, is, to a significant extent, a creative construction, a defense. This isn't to say it's false in a simplistic way, but it is partial. It's a way of coping, of making life bearable. Recognizing this can be both unsettling and incredibly liberating. Unsettling because it challenges our most cherished notions of self. Liberating because it opens up the possibility of questioning our ingrained patterns, of seeing beyond our self-imposed limitations, of perhaps, just perhaps, living with a little more truth and a little less fear. It invites you to ask what parts of my character are truly me, and what parts are armor I no longer need. Think of the driven workaholic, sacrificing health and relationships for career success. Becker might suggest this is an immortality project, an attempt to build an edifice of achievement that will outlast the self. Or consider the person who clings desperately to a particular ideology, religious or political, unable to tolerate any dissent. Could this be a way of shoring up a fragile defense against the terror of an unmoored, meaningless existence? Even romantic love, often seen as the most authentic human experience, can, in Becker's view, become a primary vehicle for the denial of death. the attempt to find ultimate meaning and security in another animal fated for the same end. We create our gods in our partners, hoping they will save us from our aloneness and finitude, a burden no human can truly bear. So, we build our character armor, we invest in our immortality projects, we tell ourselves the vital lie. But what is the ultimate price of this elaborate denial? If this system of defenses is necessary for us to function, does it also, paradoxically, limit our capacity for truly authentic and courageous living? Is there a way to live more fully? Even with the full knowledge of our tragic fate, Becker doesn't shy away from the difficult implications. The denial of death, while necessary for normal functioning, can lead to a kind of living death, a life unlived, a potential unfulfilled, a constant low-grade anxiety that comes from the repressed truth always threatening to break through. When our defenses become too rigid, too all-encompassing, they stifle our creativity, our spontaneity, our capacity for genuine connection. The thinking tool Becker offers here is not a set of easy solutions, but a call to a different kind of heroism. True heroism, for Becker, is not about achieving worldly success or building a flawless character armor. It's about the courage to face our own creatureliness, to acknowledge our finitude, to live with the tragic paradox of being a self-conscious animal who is aware of its own death. This involves, as he puts it, the fullest apprehension of the human condition, including the realization that one is a worm and food for worms. This isn't about morbid fascination, but about stripping away illusions to arrive at a more honest and ultimately more robust way of being. What is the ideal for mental health? Then, Becker asks, a lived, compelling illusion that does not lie about life, death, and reality. Why, this honest illusion might involve finding meaning in something larger than the individual ego, in connection with others, in service to a cause, in the creation of beauty, in the pursuit of truth, but always with the full awareness of its ultimate contingency and our own. It's about, as Kierkegaard suggested, taking the leap of faith not into a dogmatic religion, but into life itself, with all its terror and all its wonder. The journey towards this kind of courageous living is not easy. It requires what Becker, following rank, calls the creative illusion, the capacity to create meaning in a meaningless universe, to affirm life even in the shadow of death. This is where art, philosophy, and even a certain kind of spirituality, not necessarily religious dogma, can play a crucial role. They provide us with the symbols, the narratives, the hero systems that allow us to make sense of our experience and to feel that our lives, however brief, have significance. But unlike the unconscious denial of death that characterizes normal neurosis, this creative affirmation is conscious. It acknowledges the terror, but refuses to be paralyzed by it. It says yes to life, not by ignoring its tragic dimension, but by incorporating it, by finding meaning within it. This is the heroism of the artist, the philosopher, the saint, those who dare to look into the abyss and still find a reason to create, to love, to hope, not for personal immortality, but for the ongoing project of human meaning. Becker doesn't offer a utopian vision of a world without fear. The terror of death is an inescapable part of the human condition. But he does suggest that by facing this terror, by understanding its profound influence on us, we can live with less illusion, with more honesty, and with a deeper appreciation for the fragile, precious gift of our existence. We can, perhaps, learn to bear the burden of our godlikeness with a little more grace. What can you take away from this difficult but vital wisdom? Firstly, the courage to examine your own denial of death. What are your immortality projects? How does the fear of insignificance and annihilation shape your choices, your relationships, your anxieties? This self-reflection is the crucial first step. Secondly, the understanding that true strength lies not in building impenetrable defenses, but in the willingness to be vulnerable, to face the truth of your condition. It's about finding what Becker calls a workable heroism, a way to create meaning and affirm life, not in spite of your finitude, but because of it. Because every moment becomes infinitely precious. This is the path not to an escape from anxiety, but to a life lived with profound, conscious courage. Consider the artist who pours their soul into their work, knowing it may never bring fame, but driven by an inner need to express their vision. Or the activist who fights for justice, aware of the risks because they believe in a better world. Or even the parent who dedicates themselves to raising a child, facing the daily anxieties and sacrifices as an act of profound, life-affirming love. These are all, in their own way, forms of workable heroism, ways of confronting the terror of existence not by denying it, but by channeling that existential energy into something meaningful, something that connects us to life, to others, and to the ongoing human story, even as we acknowledge its inevitable end. Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death is a challenging, even disturbing, read. It forces us to confront the most uncomfortable truth of our existence, our mortality, and the pervasive, often unconscious terror it instills. He reveals how our personalities, our cultures, and our noblest aspirations are frequently elaborate defenses against this primal fear. Our character is a vital lie. Our strivings for heroism are immortality projects, all designed to shield us from the abyss. Yet, Becker's message is not one of ultimate despair. Instead, it is a profound call to a more courageous and authentic way of living. By acknowledging the denial, by understanding our creatureliness, by facing our finitude, we open ourselves to the possibility of a deeper, more conscious heroism, one that doesn't seek to escape death, but to infuse life with meaning, creativity, and love, even in its shadow. The true challenge is to live the honest illusion, to bear our godlikeness with courage, and to find our significance not in denying our end, but in how we live until that end arrives. What are your immortality projects? How does the awareness of death shape your daily life, your fears, your ambitions? This is a conversation that goes to the very core of what it means to be human. And we want to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections in the comments below. If this exploration has resonated with you, if you're seeking to delve deeper into the great questions of existence, then subscribe to MindMirror for more journeys into the landscape of the human psyche. Click the notification bell so you don't miss our next illumination. Thank you for watching and for daring to reflect. The ideas explored in this video are for philosophical and psychological exploration and are not intended as professional advice. Viewers are encouraged to engage in their own critical thinking and further research, and to consult with qualified professionals for personal concerns.